Welcome into Bears Over Beers. I'm Jeff Berckes. Over there is EJ Snyder. Stands for Ezekiel Jebediah Snyder, right?
Nailed it.
Got it.
Straight
Nailed it.
Amish
Okay.
all the
I
way.
couldn't remember. It's kind of tough, but EJ, the Chicago Bears are focusing this week. They have decided that they are going to focus because they apparently haven't been doing that. That's what Coach Eberflus said. So we're going to focus on some fun stuff tonight. We got a couple fun questions from Bill Zimmerman. I don't know if I can get all these questions in. We may have to save some for next week, but Bill's always got some fun questions for us to try to dive into. We've got some other questions from people. We've got a good show lined up. I'm excited about the content. Thanks you guys for sending in questions. If you're joining us live on YouTube, which I would encourage everybody to do if that's your thing, we're going to try to do this every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Central. So hop in the comments and type in there, and we'll work those into the show as we go along. And of course, you can send them to us on Twitter as well. But in this show, we bring a drink because this team drives us to drink. So what did you bring this week?
I went for the good stuff. And that seems very counter to what the team is doing on the field, which is true. It is absolutely counter to what the team's doing on the field. But one of the questions this week was, what is an alcohol you would buy with other people's money if price was no object? So I brought one of the bottles I have that I probably should have bought with other people's money if I could have, but I bought it with my own, and I'm not sad about that. This is Kaio. It's Japanese whiskey. This happens to be the ruby finish. I also have the sherry finish. I have to say, you know how much I like the sherry. I chased after that bottle for about 9 months. The ruby I just kind of walked into. And I thought, hey, I had such good luck with the sherry, I should try the ruby. I got to say, low key, I think the ruby might be even better. It's really, really good. It is not, in my opinion, something to just pour and drink. It is something to be savored or shared with friends or celebratory. And I haven't had any in a bit. And I thought, if I've got to sit there and talk about the Bears for an hour, Kaio it is. So highly recommended if you can find it. It's excellent stuff. It is complex. It'll keep you going. And yeah, it's wonderful. So I'm happy about that at least. What did you bring?
Well, so the ruby finish means that it's a port finish.
Ruby is they finish it in oak, and it is it's both. So I want to say I'm not sure if it's just port or if it's mixed with something else, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. That I have not had that one. That sounds good. But like you say, that's a little bit more of an expensive bottle. And if you can get somebody else to pay for it, more is the better. So that question was brought to us by Steve Jinks. He is at Steve Jinks 1. I guess just that Steve Jinks was taken for Steve, but at Steve Jinks 1. And the question reads, what is the best libation you can buy with somebody else's money? Must be readily available. So things like Pappy don't count, but expenses be darned. So great question, because I think that a lot of people are going to go like to the highly allocated stuff, even the stuff that may not have ever had, meaning that it's very difficult to find. And that right now the bourbon market's crazy, everything's chased out. And so, what is it that is readily available on the shelf that, you don't really, I took this as like, I don't want to pay for it myself, but man, it'd be really nice if I could get a bottle, if somebody would pay this for me. And so I thought about that a lot, because the readily available thing was important to me, because that bottle is going to be tough to find for you too. Right. So for me, the way that I would answer this question is Macallan 18, because that is readily available. You can find that pretty easy. Macallan is a Scotch. I think all of their lineup is really good. I have been fortunate enough to taste everything up to the 18. I haven't tasted anything above that, I don't think. And everything is good. I really like the line. It's a nice line. And 18 is just really spendy. And I've never actually bought a bottle, but I've had it in different situations. When I finished my MBA, I went into a bar where they had Macallan 18, and it was just a little bit left. And I convinced the bartender that she should just finish that bottle off by pouring it into a glass and just giving it to me, and then she can open up the next bottle. and it was very nice of her that she did that. And it turned out to be way more liquid than it looked like. It was definitely like a double pour, and so that was a bonus win there. So it offset maybe some of the tuition money, but that was a great moment for me. And so I've always associated Macallan 18 with like a kind of a big deal. And if someone else is paying for it, I would be great because I think it's like $250 around here. But
Ooh.
so that's my answer to that question. Yeah,
So
it
my
is expensive.
alternate answer that is a little bit easier to find than the cow, because as you know, that's specialized and fairly limited. Something that is on most shelves, in fact, you can find it at Total Wine, is also an 18, and I recently had it, and um, it's my favorite right now. Jameson 18. And again, like you, I'd had just about everything in the Jameson line, but I had never had 18. And I was actually at a bar and I was looking through and they actually had all the Jamesons. And I was like, yep, 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 yep. What the hell is that? And bartender says, it's 18. And I said, ooh, I've never had that. And I said, can I afford that? And he said, I don't know. I'll look it up. And he told me how much it was. And I said, I can afford that. I can afford one shot of that. He gave me a very nice pour of it. And he actually told me that's what he gives people who say they don't like Irish,
Well,
because,
sure.
well, I mean, it ruins them
Right.
100%, but it is lovely. It is better than any other Jameson, and I love many of them, but it's definitely cheaper than Macallan 18. It's like 160 around me, and that's with a lot of tax. So your
Still
part of the country,
still something that you want to let somebody else pay for.
oh, absolutely, 100%. Like, somebody wants to get me a very nice gift, I'm like, that's the one. Yeah, it's worth having. Like you said, if you happen into a situation where somebody's like, "Hey, I'll get you what you want," even if it's just a shot, I would highly recommend Jameson 18. It is delicious.
All right, so for my pour for the night, we'll make it quick. I'm drinking Blue Run rye whiskey. This is actually a cask strength, so it's 116 proof. Blue Run, kind of an interesting company. They are not cheap, but I bought this one because the proof was high enough for me to feel like I was getting my money's worth. It is very good. I'm almost at the end of the bottle, so I figured I better bring it on before I finish it. Thing about Blue Run is they do amazing marketing. This is a very attractive bottle. It looks
Mhm.
great on the shelf, and they've got this little butterfly that's a different color based on what you're buying. I mean, I'm not like a butterfly guy, but it's still a very attractive, marketing piece. And everything I've had from them is really good, but it's spendy. So I guess I went spendy as well. Cheers. Let's get into
Yeah.
this thing.
Cheers. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm
I
going to
forgot
start.
to give you proof. It's 46% alcohol by volume, so whatever that is, 94.
That's low.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not super hot.
Right. Right.
Delicious, but not super hot.
All right, so let's get into this. Let's start with the Bears question, and I think that this is probably about as positive as we can get with this football team right now. So I figured this would be the place to start. And this is from our friend Fitzy, and he says, "Have you seen any positives, remote bright spots from this team this year? Perhaps a rookie or a second year player that looks to be a foundational piece. Crossing his fingers that there's something in there to work with."
Yeah, it's difficult. We recorded our Friday preview pod this morning, and Brett was unkind in choosing the Broncos Bears as one of the games that we needed to talk about. I said that we didn't need to talk about it. He said we did. We talked at length about the Bears situation because the game itself is not much of a strategic matchup. And it is difficult to find bright spots for the Bears. The running backs have been decent in terms of their efficiency. They've been pretty good. They've had a few explosive plays, even behind an offensive line that has been in shambles. There's not another way to put that. Both of the starting two running backs between Khalil Herbert and Roshan have looked decent. I would say those are both players I'm keeping on my roster, even if I'm cleaning house. Other than that, it is really difficult to assess anything on this team because, again, the line play in general, offense and defense, which are the foundations of the team, have been shoddy and inconsistent. And that makes it very difficult to say, like, oh, were they executing their assignment or were they just trying to clean up what blew up in front of them on either side of the ball? So a few good things from Javon Dexter. He's had some flashes. Um, better than Pickens, I would say, in terms of like, yeah, that might be something. In terms of, I mean, Sanborn still looks really good when he gets on the field. Like that's a guy that plays with the kind of energy and skill that I like to keep on my football team. The secondary has been absolutely it's just been blown up. We expected the secondary to be a strength of this team. Tons of injuries. That leads to a lot of inconsistency and playing in different combinations, just like the offensive line, not having that trust and understanding, oh, you got this, or this is how you play that. So, you talk about routes and receivers, that's all just a mess. So it's very hard to assess anything on this team that looks like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely keeping that no matter what, no matter who the new head coach is, if presumably Eberflus is fired.
Well, that was sunny. To me, I think DJ Moore is a player. I mean, I think
Oh,
he's really good. I mean, I was trying to tell everybody. I mean, people caught up, but like, right away, I think people maybe didn't watch enough DJ Moore tape at the beginning. I was like, no, this guy's really good. And yeah, I know he had the drop, but whatever. Like he's awesome.
All
I think
receivers have drops, just
I
like
think
all corners get burned.
absolutely. I think Darnell Wright is, I mean, he's a rookie right tackle. He's taken a few lumps, but I see enough there that I'm pretty excited about him. So it's early, but I'm pretty excited about him. I think he can settle in. Yeah, I mean, I like Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson. That's a good combination, right? I mean, those two will be back next year, so I think you feel good about that. So I agree with that. And the defense is tough, man, and I think a lot of it's scheme. So a lot of it's going to be who's going to come in. I mean, if we're assuming that the Bears are going to move on, which is not a foregone conclusion, honestly, like there's 2 or 3 years left on that deal. Like, that is not something the McCaskies like to do very often. So I know, but like, there's
Well,
enough there.
here's my counterpoint to that, because I've heard that a couple of times from different sources, not many, over the past 3-4 days for sure. Oh, it's not like, how do you sell that? Because you still have to sell tickets, right? How do you sell that? We're gonna run this back in any flavor. Like, how does that play, regardless of draft picks, building for the future, whatever? Like this staff that allowed this travesty to happen on both sides of the balls, we think that's good. Like
I don't
I
think that there's
I
any. I
don't
don't think there's any way that they should do that. But I couldn't believe that they brought back Pace and Nagy for the year that was very obvious, right?
True,
So
true.
anything short of like a locker room meltdown, like it was under the Trustman year two, like it's hard. It's hard, like
Well, I
it's hard for them with their pocketbook for them to
yeah.
just say, okay, yeah, sure, we'll
I
pay
want
it
to
out.
go in on that too, though, because I've even seen it in the comments tonight already. Oh, we haven't given up a 50 burger. The back-to-back 50 burgers were a seminal moment in recent Bears fandom, right? That was an extremely low point where everybody said, "That's it, burn it all." Like this is completely unacceptable. The last, what is it, 10 Eberflus losses have been by an average of 21.5 points a game. 3 scores.
Hmm.
Like we say all the time in this league, oh, it's really hard to be good. It's really hard to win. It's really hard to stay ahead of the curve. And it is. It is the most competitive, dynamic league I think there is, in terms of everybody just wanting to cut everybody else down, everybody figuring everything else out. Like it is a cutthroat league, and it is really, really hard to win. It is also hard to lose by 3 scores consistently for 10 or 13 games. 3 scores is a lot. There are a lot of
Mhm.
games in this league. In fact, the majority of games in this league are 1-score games. If
Yeah, we
you
talk
are
about it a
losing
lot
by
on.
if you're
Yeah.
losing by 3, like all the freaking time, to me that's actually worse than peaking at 50 twice but having, some more success in other places. If you are just consistently getting your barn doors blown off, there is no way to run that back and say, "Oh, we think it'll get better." Like better is not good enough. That's just completely underperforming for the standard.
Talk about it a lot with Lester on Barren Balanced, and just the idea of teams are in this league are pushed towards the middle.
Yes.
So the idea of 7-10 to 10-7, that's going to be the majority of the league is going to fall in between those records because the league is pushing you to be average. It's hard for you to like attain and maintain dominance, and it's hard for you to hang around in the gutter for too long. Like there are franchises that try to be bad, like the Bears did last year, so that they can, take a reset year and maybe they get a good draft pick and, then they kind of move on. And it worked for the Bears, like, right? But the danger is you got to get yourself out of it. Then if you hired a coach and you were kind of cool with him only winning 3 games, and then he comes into the next year and then he shows you that actually he might be just a 3-win coach. Like that just might be what he does. Then you're like, oh wait, like this needs to change. This needs to happen. So it is a very different feeling from last year where at some point it was like, hey guys, we talked about this. This was going to be a
Right.
bad football team.
Yeah,
This
that
is
was
what we're seeing. It's
purposeful.
talent deficient, right? But
Yeah.
now there's talent on the field and it doesn't look any better. And in some ways it looks worse. And so now it's like, well, to me, that means there's bad coaching. And so I understand that some of the players on the field have to take some responsibility, and some of these guys are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, we could talk about Chase Claypool and what he's doing on the field and off the field, whatever, right? But I think a lot of this comes down to coaching staff and their philosophy and being seemingly outdated and or not understanding their personnel. So, trying to isolate individuals in outdated schemes, like you talk about, secondary is a mess. I don't know, man. Like they're just playing like soft zone on third down. Like they're probably doing what they're supposed to do based on the call, but that's not a good call, right? So what's the like? How do you evaluate a guy like Jalen Johnson to say, yeah, I want to extend him and I want to make sure that he's a part of this if you're putting him in a position to look bad? Like his numbers aren't going to be very good because you're not putting him in a position to succeed.
No, I fully agree that and there's a lot to go over. We're not short of content, which is sad because it's a lot of it's negative content and you and I tend to skew more positive. But there's a lot to talk about in terms of I don't know about you, but I'm fielding a lot of questions over the last week from sort of all corners about like Fitzy's question, is there anything worth saving? Who stays and who goes? If you were in charge, what would you do to fix the Bears? Those questions are just pouring in from all angles. In fact, I was sitting at the Seahawks game on Sunday and my phone was just melting from people like, blink twice if you're okay. We don't want you to die. Like, is there anything we can do? Because the Bears were getting blown out by the Chiefs, which we all expected, but I think it was maybe a lot of time, for a lot of people, the first time they'd really gazed upon this spectacle that is the Bears and were like, their eyes started to bleed and they were like, oh my God, I got to check on EJ. It's just a lot. Like nobody's blameless here. Nobody's played great. As far as I'm concerned, nobody's coached great. There isn't, typically it's like one side of the ball is good
Right.
and the other side is struggling. And so you're saying, oh man, the defense has got to be tired of holding the offense up. That's typically the Bears line. Sometimes on other teams, it's the other way around. There is no holding up. Like everybody's dropping the ball sort of equally. And it makes it, you're right. It makes it very difficult, especially a lot of these players in the secondary that are having to play due to injury. Some of them have exciting traits and pedigree. But like, how do you assess a guy like Terrell Smith?
Right.
Like, I don't know. Like the scheme's bad. He's playing with a rotating cast of characters. He's a rookie. On top of that, like what's the reason for that breakdown? Is it because the guy next to him should have had it? Is it because he's just a rookie and he made a rookie mistake? Or were they in a crap call for third down? Like
Right.
maybe all three. So it's very difficult to sort of slice the onion here and say, oh, well, I can point to this and with a little bit of this, it'll get fixed. It's a lot of everything all over the place.
Uh, Bill Zimmerman, one of his questions was, would you rather have a root canal or watch a loop of the Bears defense on third downs? And I don't want to have another root canal. I'm going to put that out there in the universe. I
Yeah,
don't need to like have another one, but I have had one.
me too.
And what actually I've had one twice, like the same tooth
Yep.
when I was like 18 years old or 20 years old. So it was in college, some, whatever. And then just recently, I had to go back and like get it redone because they didn't do it right. They didn't get the whole
Yep.
thing
They didn't
figured
finish.
out,
Yeah.
which is amazing, right? Like I didn't even know that was possible.
Oh yeah, it
But
happens.
Dennis discovered, whatever. So I had to go back and get a root canal, and I'm like very nervous because I remember this being a
Not great.
real
Yeah.
thing. Like, it was the most painless. It was not, there was it was fine. Like I had no issues with it. I was amazed by these professionals that just knocked this thing out. And they were like, all right, we're all done. I'm like, what? Like it was
Yeah.
super
I
easy.
I
I would rather
learned
have a root canal than watch this Bears defense on third down.
well, you'd rather have root canal number 2,
Right.
but would you rather have root canal number 1? That's the
I
real
don't
question.
remember how. I mean, like, I wonder
Yeah,
if I
I
built it up over the last 20 years. That's my point.
it's possible. One thing I learned in my mid to late 20s, there are certain things that you want to pay for in this life,
Hmm.
and very competent dental care is one of those things. You want to find somebody like dentist number 2 and
Yeah.
just ride that train. Be like, "Hey,
Right.
when I need things fixed, you're going to fix them. You're going to do it right. It's not going to be a horrific deal." Cuz I had spotty dental care growing up, and then I finally, like when I was about 26, like asked around, and I was like, "Hey,
Who's a
your,
good dentist?
your smile looks expensive. Who do you go to?"
Right.
And like 4 or 5 people said the same person, and I was like, "All right, I'm showing up there, and they're gonna take care of my teeth." And good decision. So,
Smart.
I if I had to watch a loop of the Bears on third down, it might be during a root canal because they usually loop you up pretty good, and you you wouldn't really remember watching the film. So maybe both at the same time, get it out of the way.
Oh, I mean, but again, if I'm choosing, I'm just going to take the root canal. But
Okay. All right.
we'll
That's
move on.
bad. That's a hell of a statement about your team that I would rather have a root canal than just watch them play. Oh,
The third down defense, it's bad. I mean, it's very painful to watch.
everything is bad.
Everything's
Like
painful. That's
it's
particularly
all
painful.
bad. Yeah.
It's all bad. All right, we'll move on. Omega Jolteon. I mean, had a bunch. So this is actually that it's not Omega Jolteon 3 for those of you looking on YouTube. It's Omega Jolteon's third question. So he had a bunch, but I picked a couple. Um, he wants us to divide up the pie of blame. So the blame pie for this season between Justin Fields, Ryan Poles, Matty Reflus, and Luke Getzey. Where
Okay,
you going with this one, sir?
this question made me want pie because I don't know about you, and it's fall and like apple pie. Like it's we're getting into like
Why isn't
holiday
there a
season.
pie ranking question? That's what
Yeah,
we need a
exactly.
pie
Like
draft
the
next time.
first thing I saw this, I made it to blame pie, and I was like, I'm not blaming pie. I want pie now. Um, it's if we're doing the pie chart to determine blame, um, it's difficult because it depends on your theory of what the head coach is responsible for. And in my mind, in my experience, the head coach is responsible for the football product. And that means his coaching staff, the effect that they have on the players, like the buck stops here. That's the gig is if we're not playing well, it's my fault as the head coach. So it's very difficult for me not to assign Eberflus a decent sized slice of this thing. In terms of offensive coordinator and quarterback, again, there's multiple issues on both sides. There's blame to go around. I would lay a little bit more on Getzey, but not much because Justin has blown opportunities he's had. Like he has had open shots that he's not hit multiple, which means, hey, the OC schemed him open and you didn't hit it. Now, we could talk about the reasons for that all day. Some of it is processing. Some of it is he's so used to getting hit in a second and a half that he just ducks out of clean pockets because he's skittish at this point. He's been shell shocked, for lack of a better term. So a little bit like what happened to David Carr, which is rough. He took so many sacks in his first couple of years. He was just never right. He couldn't hang in a good pocket. He didn't expect it to be there. So he never turned to that level. So I would give it a little bit more because Getzey had it figured out. Like I understand the balance is we want Justin Fields to progress as a pocket passer and he needs to do that. But that does not mean eliminate the most dynamic quarterback runner in the league. It means moderate that And yes, you have to roll the dice with some hits he's going to take. That's part of the gig. But you don't just like throw the baby out with the bathwater and go, you must stay in the pocket and pass the ball. And it seems pretty clear basically through the game planning. I'm not talking about Justin's comments because that's he said, but from what you see on the field, like it's pretty clear they're not calling quarterback runs. They're just not. And that's dumb. Like if you're a coach, you need to leverage your players' strengths. And you have one of the strongest strengths in the entire NFL, and you're saying, nah. So Getsy gets a little bit more than Justin. Eberflus gets a bunch. Poles is not non-culpable here. He's still getting 25, 30% of the blame because he believed that the offensive line was good enough. After last year, when he saw what not having enough guys would do to your team, he decided that his moves in the offseason were enough to keep that from happening. And we're right back in that. And it's week 3. Like you're going to have your 5th different line combination in week 5 if Tevin comes back. Like it's not good enough. And then somebody put out a list, and I thought this was really interesting, of his free agency additions. And his free agency additions from last year, we talked about it. It was understood what the Bears were doing. He had to fill a team. There were a lot of one-year contracts. They weren't supposed to win. You're not going to get cream of the crop. In fact, you're lucky to get anybody because they usually know what your outlook is, which is, hey, you're cutting salary. You're not trying to win. This is a development year. I just want a job. Like, so I don't hold last year's free agents like wholly against him. If they were just still bad, yeah, okay, but they're probably mitigating circumstances as to why he had to get those guys. This year, completely different story. Clean slate, most free agency money in the entire NFL, and the number of guys on that list that are not still with the team, and you're in your 2nd year of being GM, was staggering. And I realized that a lot of Ryan Poles' decisions, free agency and the draft, I've been like, when they come down, I've just been kind of meh about. Like, if we go through the draft, like Darnell Wright, I was like, yeah, that's a good pick. I like him. He's a need. I think he fits really well. Javon Dexter, I was like, hey, I can see the potential. I like him. Zach Pickens, I was like, I don't know. Okay, maybe. Like, we'll see. Tyler Scott, I was like, okay, but is that your biggest need? Like, it was just sort of like, we came out of the draft. I was like, we had all this capital. This is what we got. And it was similar for free agency. Tremaine Edmonds, I was like, I think that's a good swap for Roquan. TJ Edwards as your second choice. I was like, okay, TJ Edwards is a good player and you need linebacker help, but is that really the second guy you're going to sign? And on down the line, even in last year, Al-Qadim Muhammad, like I understand that he was familiar with the scheme, but the opportunity cost of having a very mid player sort of taking up oxygen on your defense is those are reps that you could have been giving to a young player to presumably develop last year. And instead you didn't. He was really mid. He's not with the team anymore. At that point, you're like, was that a
And
good
it is
decision?
such a compliment to
I
Alfred
fully
Mohammed.
agree. That is
Oof.
as much shine as we can put on that particular sign. But when you look at the sum total, only 2 years in of both draft and free agency, there's a lot of meh on there. And
Mhm.
draft pick looks, the book is still out. Free agents, they were who they were before you got them. And a lot of times it was the second or third best guy. And then, if like Nate Davis is one of your like big rock acquisitions to stabilize the offensive line, guy doesn't play all of training camp. I understand he's got a personal situation. We don't know what that is. Not going to pass judgment because might feel like a real jerk when
Well, I
I
think we
find
know what
out.
it is, right? He lost a family member, so, I
Yeah,
mean, he's
and
dealing with that, so
it's like, okay, like some things it feels like aren't his fault, like the Larry Ogunjobi thing. I think feel like Larry Ogunjobi would have been a good player, but it sounded very much like the medical staff said, no, you can't do this.
mhm.
So he was disappointed. Larry Ogunjobi goes on, plays for Pittsburgh, and is doing really well. And you're like, would it have been different if you got Ogunjobi? But when you look at the whole, what we have in the gate within 2 years, I, it doesn't blow me away. Let's put it that way. So he still gets some of the blame.
Okay, so I don't want to. I know you're not a math guy, so I don't necessarily want to press you to like say
Oh,
percentages and then like
okay. So I'm gonna
it'll all add
go
up to like
50.
150.
Now 50 on Eberflus because you're the head coach.
Okay.
If your coordinators aren't getting it done, it's on you. I'll give Poles 30, so that's 80%, and then split the difference with a hair more to Getsy than Fields for the remainder.
Okay. Okay. I think I would give more to. I think for me, the slice ranking, if you will, it's Eberflus because, and particularly right now, like he also owns everything on the defense, and he brought in he brought in Getsy, right? So I mean, you have a little ownership there. So there's that. Now I know people are going to say like, well, Poles chose Eberflus, and that's true. But from what we understand, he chose from a list of 3 people, and so I don't know, man. Like maybe I don't want to give George McCaskey any pie because he doesn't deserve any pie. Period. Nothing nice to George
No,
McCaskey until
no
further
pie for
notice.
you.
But the blame pie, he certainly gets his own pie if you want to go that way. But I think so. I think for me, biggest slice is Eberflus, and then I would actually go Getsy because I think he's gone backwards with Justin Fields. Like
I agree.
I don't understand how he's just wiped away all the progress that happened last year, and he looks worse than he did as a rookie. Like there's something wrong there. And then I would
100%.
go Poles because I think I still have to give the general manager a little bit more of like the big picture thing. I know I don't love everything that's happened. I would wish there was a little bit more money spent in places that I would spend it if I was if I was the GM. But again, he's got a longer time frame. He's trying to rebuild the health of the organization. I don't know if he's going to do it, but like, again, I want to give him a little bit more of a leash where I feel like I can evaluate that Getsy's not good at what he does and Everflus isn't good at what he does. And then Justin Fields would be the lowest. And I'm not trying to make excuses for Justin Fields, but this is a very athletic and talented human being that played really good college football and showed some things his rookie year and then showed elite traits his second year once they changed things up and everybody was excited. And then he looks like worse than his rookie year. Like to me,
Yep.
there's more going on than just Justin forgot how to play football, right? So I get he needs to own some of it, but if you're trying to make him into something he isn't and ignore all the things he's good at, I don't know how much blame you can really heap on the quarterback in this situation. All right, EJ, we're going to take a quick break. We will let somebody else pay for, I don't know, maybe eventually one of those nice bottles of bourbon, and and then we'll be right back to take more questions. All right. Let's I want to do another Bill one. So
Shout out to Bill. He generated a lot of
I
questions.
mean, like I didn't even put all of
It's
them in here. We're gonna have to
it's
save some of them.
impressive. No, I mean, hey, it's job security. We got more questions to answer for next week.
So I would absolutely fire Epperflus. I mean, I want to make sure that everybody understands. Like, I've already fired him in my mind. I just don't. I don't think the guys. I don't think it's redeemable at this point. Um, not necessarily one to like pull the fire the coach trigger, but I don't see what he does, and this defense is pathetic. So this question from Bill kind of speaks to that. He says if you put the 63 coordinators that offensive and defensive coordinators across the league, including Getsy, all of those names into a hat, and you had to pull one out at random to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears for the rest of the season, would you take the unknown or would you take Eberflus? And I don't even have to think about it. I'm going to take the unknown because for me, there are, I mean, I would say at least half the league has a coordinator that's at least somewhat interesting, right? So at least half the coordinators are somewhat interesting. I will say so. And there's plenty of former head coaches that I mean, you could pull Dan Quinn, who was a candidate. Maybe a lot of people don't love Dan Quinn, but he was a head coach that had some success. He has shown that he's evolved his defensive philosophy, right? He puts his players in a position to succeed. I would gladly take Dan Quinn over Matt Eberflus, right? So like you kind of think about, I mean, maybe you get lucky and you get Ben Johnson, and all of a sudden you got a guy that's willing to, I don't know, shape his offense around the skill sets of his players, right? So I'm absolutely taking the chance because I don't know how much worse it can get.
It can't get a lot worse. You're losing by 3 touchdowns per game. for a good long stretch. This is not overreaction Monday, right? This is not, oh, he lost a game, we should fire him. This is your team has been losing and losing badly for a good long stretch now. And for me, the nail in the coffin was this weekend. It might seem sort of milk toast. It might kind of seem middle of the road, coach speak, doesn't matter to people. But in times like this, if you're going to be a leader, you have to say things that matter, and you can't just pull the Bull Durham, quote training out and be like, we're going to play them one day at a time. It's not going to work. And you can't say things that are objectively untrue. And Eberflus came out this week and said, I think we're close. And to me, that just breaks the matrix. Like, sorry, no, man. Like, you're not close to anything. Like, your team is horrible in roughly, let me think about it, all phases. Like, you're really, really, really bad. You are bouncing off the bottom of the league. You are looking at the first overall pick for your own pick. And Carolina's, who you thought was going to be the high pick that you had, is possibly going to be lower than yours. Like, and I made the joke in one of our chats that the only close they were was PFF close. And somebody said, what's PFF close? And I said, pretty far from. They are not close in any phase. And to come out and just, at that point, you're just ball-faced lying to the press, right? You're just like, I don't have anything to say. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's not that bad, right? It reminds me very much of the gif of the dog sitting in the burning bar going, this is fine. It's not fine. Don't say it's fine. Say it's screwed up. Say it's messed up. Say you're, polls at least came out and said, hey, we've got adversity, which is, corporate speak for this is a challenge, right?
Mhm.
Didn't go the way we wanted
It's an
it
opportunity.
to.
It's an
Yeah,
opportunity, a
right.
growth opportunity.
Challenge we're going to turn into an opportunity. Yeah. Like, at least he said that. Eberflus basically came out and said, no, we're a couple of tweaks. Yeah, we got it. And the answer is, anybody that watches football knows this is not a team that is a couple tweaks away from anything significant. A couple of tweaks is not going to fix what ails you here.
A couple comments from the YouTube watchers, and I liked this one. Derek says, bake a whole extra blame pie and throw it at George McCaskey's face. I like that idea.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate that. True story at this point.
Deadwood 1919 called it a blameberry pie, which I kind of like. And then we got another question from the crowd here, so we'll handle this one. So Chio says, would you like if Chicago traded their quarterback to the Jets for draft capital? Fill in what that might be, what that might be worth. Right now, Justin Fields' value has dropped, and the Jets need a temporary quarterback until Rodgers can maybe come back next year off of that Achilles injury. Clearly, Zach Wilson's not the answer. They knew that. That's why they went out and got Rodgers. There was at least some rumbling behind the scenes that the Jets were calling around and seeing who might be available. I'm sure that one of those calls was to Chicago because maybe their timeline might match up here. Maybe Ryan Poles might be interested in taking a nice pick off of the Jets' hands. They're all in on this construct, right? Like they were all in on this. They think they've got a Super Bowl defense. And so because of the Rodgers injury, the Jets are keeping their first round pick for next year and sending their second round pick to Green Bay instead because of the conditional measures in the trade. And so they have a first round pick available. I don't know if that was discussed or whatever. I mean, at this point, are you someone who would pull the trigger on someone like that?
I would. It's an overestimation of Justin Fields' value around the league right now. We as Bears fans are very invested in Justin for obvious reasons. And, up until very recently, we believed, some of us still believe, if circumstances were different. Circumstances are not different. This is the hand you're dealt. Chicago is very unlikely to fire any coaches midseason. So if Getsy is going to be stubborn about changing the offense, if he's going to do the same thing he did last year, except just hold out and not change in week 6, which was really the key shift that allowed Justin to highlight some of those skills, Like, if he's just going to hold the hard line, you're going to get what you're going to get. Like, if you're going to do what you're going to do, you're going to get what you're going to get. So at that point, regardless of what you think about Justin, he's not going to thrive here because, again, at the end of the year, this was the evaluation and sort of decision year on Justin. He's not going to thrive here. And that's a very hard thing to swallow because a lot of us thought that he would. He hasn't. I think that's in a lot of ways organizational malpractice because he is a better player, like you said, than he's showing this season. If you could get something for him, now you're not getting a first. Nobody in the league is giving a first for Justin Fields, even the Jets, who are over a barrel. They might give a third or a fourth, and a lot of Bears fans would howl, oh, you gave up Justin Fields for a third or a fourth. Get the draft capital. If anybody will trade for him right now, the reality is your team, your organization is not good enough to develop him right now. He is not going to have that success here. It's going to be elsewhere. And I hope he does. Like, I like Justin and I think he's very talented. And I think given the proper circumstances, he could have a lot more success than he's having right now, but he's not going to have it with the Bears. And that's a tough pill to swallow. Yes, I would take a pick. Yes, if it was a third or fourth, I would still take it because you're not going anywhere this year. It's very clear that on offense, on defense, this team is not, like Eberflus said, a few tweaks away from being better. There is very little that would fix this team right now. And if you can get a pick for Justin, because you're probably not going to resign him based on how things have gone, or extend him, I should say, get a pick for him. You're probably starting over next year anyways. You're probably going to have high picks. The quarterback class is very good. And you're going to be building from the ground up again. I know that sucks. It's a realization that I came to a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It's very painful, but it's true. Like, them's the facts, folks. So if you can get something for Justin and he can go somewhere else and have more success, that's a win-win. It's a win for Justin. He gets out of a very bad situation. The Bears get a pick they can use. They have many needs. They can certainly use the pick, and it's really not going to change their overall outlook for how this season goes anyways.
I'm just not even going to answer the question, to be quite honest with you, because
Nope, fair. Totally fair.
I think I would need the higher pick because I think it's more worth seeing him play out the string to see if he can kind of turn it around.
Yeah, but if your OC is not going to flex,
I agree. But at some point, you hope that he flex. I mean, at some point, I have no interest in Luke Getsy, right? Like Luke Getsy means nothing to the Chicago Bears organization. You can cut him, you can fire him tomorrow, and that's fine. You can fire him at the end of the year, that's fine, right? Like, you can get rid of him, and no one's going to miss Luke Getsy in Chicago. But the Justin Fields thing, you've invested in him to some extent, rookie contract.
I agree.
But still, you've invested in him, and so I think I would rather see 14 more games where we see what he can do, and maybe somebody can put him in a position to succeed. And if Getsy's not the guy, like, get him out of there and see if somebody else can, do this on the staff. I don't know. But it would need to be an offer that I would feel like, okay, like I can get, I feel like this is a valuable enough pick for me to make this move. So I think it actually would need to be the Jets first. And I get it. You're saying that that's not on the table. That's fine. That means for me, I wouldn't do it. All right, let's I had another one from Omega Jolteon. This was his first one. And again, I have no idea how to say this last name, my guy, or second name. So sorry if Jolteon is not.
I think you got it. Like,
okay,
that's how I would say it.
All right, all right. So again, like, apologies if we're butchering names, but or words or whatever. Say we get the number one pick. So the draft question. That's why I put it up here for you. Say we get the number one pick and take Caleb Williams. Everybody's talking about that. But then the other pick is outside of the range of Marvin Harrison Jr. or Olu Fashanu, which is the top tackle and everybody likes right now. So let's say they're outside of that range. So those two guys are off the board. A couple quarterbacks have gone. Let's say the top defensive end is off the board, and the second pick for the Bears is up. Where do you go?
Defensive
right
end.
Now. It's early, college football early.
Super early. Fully agree. But right now, defensive end. Defensive end is a strength in this draft after quarterback. I think if you're ranking positions, and again, it's super early, quarterback is very strong in this draft. Offensive tackle, it's not just Fashanu. There are other, Joe Alt is there as well. Bunch of other guys, like tackle is very strong as well. Defensive end or edge, I would say edge specifically in terms of pass rushers, is deep. There are 4 or 5 guys that are probably going to earn first top of the second round grades. Like, there's a bunch of pass rushers. So if you're saying only one of those guys is gone, the Bears need pass rush badly. Like, they're not getting to the quarterback, and a lot of schemes are based on, hey, I have to have a guy that can win. Whether it's with 4, whether it's with 5, I have to have a guy that can win his matchup, or at least pull a double so that somebody else can win their matchup, like Yannick. Like, you need 2. The Bears have 1 who's guaranteed pretty much to get 8 or 9 sacks a year. It's what he does every year. There's nothing outside of him, and it's the strength of the draft. It is a position that you typically have to pick high to get solid results. It is law of diminishing returns. The lower the round you go, the occasional Shaq Barrett is going to happen, but Alex Highsmith maybe, but those guys go in the first round or the high second. So second pick, they've already got Caleb in the fold, probably edge, unless there's a complication with left tackle in terms of health, and then maybe one of the other tackles, and you want to have Darnell Wright and the tackle you pick as your bookends and start that way. I wouldn't be mad at that either. So those would be my 2 choices: edge or tackle, if you decide that you're not going to go forward with your left tackle.
I have no idea about the draft, so that's why I ask you the question. Apparently, Jolteon is a Pokemon, which is why
There you go.
I have
Go
no
go
idea.
collect. Yeah, go
Which is why
collect.
I have no idea how to say it. I understand that Pokemon is a thing. Like, I understand that, like, it exists in the world. I think there are cards, and I think that there are like a app and a game and stuff like
And
that.
you
That is
think
as
that
much as I
there's
know.
NFL linebackers that quit to sell those cards because they're
What?
going to make millions and
I
they get
did
called
read
out
that
as a
story.
fraud?
Right. That was great. That was a
Yeah.
great story. I
Well,
can't
it's a
remember who
great
did it.
story, but it was Blake Martinez, but it
Like
was
Martinez.
very, very representative of his NFL career. Like, a lot of people kept signing him, and then they all realized that he couldn't play. So yeah.
Yeah, well, the story made it sound like he gave up a lucrative NFL career, and I was like, okay, interesting.
Well, he did, and he made a lot of money in cards, and then everybody was like, "Oh, the way you're making so much money in cards right away is you're committing fraud," and then poof, the whole thing blew up.
Yeah, it catches up to the best of us. All right, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this Zimmerman question, but what happens first? The city of Chicago hosts a Super Bowl where the Bears win 10 plus games in a season. So basically, are
Ooh,
the Bears going to be able to recover and
yeah.
build a winner before the stadium gets built and they get awarded their one Super Bowl? Honestly, if they build the right stadium, they may get multiple Super Bowls. Like a lot
Sure.
of cold weather cities get the one and that's it, and they kind of move on. But there's plenty of I mean, if they do this right, Chicago can be a destination for this is a different conversation. But if they do this right, which pretty much means the McCaskies need to not own the team when this happens.
Funny how that becomes the answer for a lot of
It
these
does, it does.
questions.
They don't have money, guys. I'm really convinced of this, that they are rich on paper, but they don't have a lot of liquidity. And so they're not really the best people to make decisions like building a stadium. So when they got very uptight about the taxes on the property that they bought going up because that they made it more valuable, that should give you a clue that these people do not have a lot of money if they're worried about real estate taxes. But anyway, do you think that the Bears can turn this around to win 10 or more games before they host a Super Bowl? My answer is yes, because the
Yeah.
timeline in the NFL to be able to bounce back, and again, I think 10 is just like on the good side of average. But the timelines to do that are usually measured in like 2-3 years. This stadium's not going to be built for, I mean,
Right.
they're behind schedule already. That
Yep.
this stadium's not going to be built probably for another 4 or 5 years. So to me, I think the smart money is to say the 10 plus wins.
I think I think you're right because of the timeline. They're a little bit behind on the timeline to build, and then you don't get the Super Bowl the first year it's built. You get the Super Bowl like the third year it's built. Like it's built, and then 2 years later, you come up in the rotation and you get your Super Bowl. So you're talking about a bunch of years here, which the NFL timeline, the old NFL not for long, or, what have you done for me lately league, you can turn it around fairly quickly. The issue here is you're going to have to do things differently. And this goes back to the ownership. And I told you at the top of the program here that I was going to introduce a new sort of stance or theory for my fandom. Are you familiar with the legal system, JB?
The legal system?
I realize that's a loaded question.
I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in the legal system. I've kept my nose clean throughout my time here on Earth, so
And
I
I
don't know
do
that part
appreciate
of it.
that. I
Right,
like
but,
that my podcast partner is available and not just when he has time on the phone.
right. I have watched some Law and Order, right? So,
Perfect.
I
Perfect.
know
You
some
are
things. Right.
perfect.
Okay.
You understand the concept of a hostile witness.
Sure.
I am, from this point on, for the Bears or to the Bears, a hostile witness. Somebody that they called who was an advocate for them and then said, y'all have done this to me long enough, and said that I should believe you, and said that things were going to change, and said that this was the time, and said that I don't believe you anymore. Like, I don't believe you. I am hardcore Missouri. I am the show me state, right? Prove it. Prove it. Show me 8-8, which is competence, or 8-9 now because 17
right.
game season,
8-8 going into the final game. That's how
right?
you say
And
that.
and develop some players.
Right.
Like, because I'll pose this to you as a separate question that we'll answer later. Like, who's the last player you feel like really developed under the Bears? Like, came in with super low expectations and suddenly was like, holy crap, that guy can play. Because just about every other franchise has at least a handful of those guys. Some have a lot. The Bears have, like, the closest I can come is like Darnell Mooney. Like, Darnell Mooney came in as a good player and he got quite a bit better. But how much of that was him and just nutrition and conditioning and focus and game study? I mean, because anyways, we can talk about attribution later, but as of this point going forward, I'm a hostile witness for Chicago because
Okay.
you have to show me that what you say is real. Because if your coach comes out and says, "Oh, we're close," I don't believe you anymore. And I'm not just going to flip to be like, "Oh, it's navy and orange. I believe it." I'm going to be like, "No, it's navy and orange. I don't believe it based on past experience." You're going to have to prove it to me. You're going to have to draft well. You're going to have to develop some players. You're going to have results because this is a results driven league. And then maybe I'll come back to that sort of orange glasses shine that, oh, the Bears are doing it and I believe them. Right now, hostile witness.
I guess I would answer your question to say it probably goes back to Vic, right? The Vic Fangio era and the defense. He seemed to elevate the game of a lot of players. Kyle Fuller looked a lot better with Vic. Eddie Jackson really found his own. I know those are talented players and some of them are higher draft picks, but again, like those guys seem to develop well. Even like a guy like Akeem Hicks who bounced around the league a bit. He really found a home in Chicago working with Vic. So that, I guess that's probably where I would go, because I think you need more than just like you said, like Mooney. Well, yeah, but who else in that group, right? Is that really a reflection of the receiver coaches and the offensive scheme? I don't think so. I think it's him. I think he's a guy that's just worked and to continue to put himself up, to be there. So I think it has to be more like, I mean, these guys' names off the top of your head really well, but like the defensive line in San Francisco, right? Like there's
Chris
Kocurek, known to be really great at developing defensive linemen, right? The Patriots' old offensive line coach,
Dante Scarnecchia,
known to get the most out of his players, develop guys.
Well, this is the reason that it's very easy to hate the Packers as a Bears fan. Like, look at all the picks they bring in on the offensive line specifically, who get better and play very well as a unit. And they've had injuries. Like Bakhtiari's not playing this week. They're going to be fine. I guarantee you they're going to be fine because they are extremely well coached. And yes, that is frustrating as hell. Matt LaFleur is in his bag. He is making it look easy. And Jordan Love has been mostly average. Not bad, not great, mostly average, but they've been winning games because Matt LaFleur can guarantee that his quarterback is going to have 2.5 to 3 seconds because their offensive line, regardless of where they pick those guys or where they play them,
Right.
are going to be fine. Defensive line, same way. They pick guys. They maybe were good or high draft picks, and they continue to contribute at that level. Chicago is the opposite of that. Guys come in, and I've seen it over and over again this week. Even if we get Caleb, we're going to ruin him. I'm like, if that's the way you approach your team, it's the team's problem. Like the
Actually might be
team
time to pick a new team.
Right. The team does not have an approach that allows even like Caleb is being talked about as a generational talent. I hate that term, but he qualifies. Like, and if you're saying that guy can come to our town and we're going to ruin him,
Not rise above. Right.
like he's not even going to be as good as he is at USC. We're going to make him worse. It's the team, not you.
Yeah. Right. All right. I'm going to do the last two with Bill. We'll spend a little bit of time on this one, and then the last one will be fun, and then we're going to get out of here.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, fun.
I'm all about fun.
Yeah. This one's not fun. If you had a chance to reinstall Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy now for the next 31 games, so it's the rest of this year and next year, or be forced to keep this same regime and staff for the next 31 games, which are you picking? I'm picking the firing squad. I'm out. I'm out on Matt Eberflus, and you know what? I was out really early on Ryan Pace. You know that. We talked about that a lot. I did not like how Ryan Pace ran this football team. I don't like a lot of the choices that Ryan Poles has made so far necessarily. It feels like he's building outside in. That feels weird to me, but there's enough that I've liked, and then I like that he has what seems to be a more long-term vision. Maybe that comes to fruition or maybe it doesn't. I get that, but like at least it wasn't the Ryan Pace regime where he was like, I come from New Orleans and that's all I know how to do. And so I'm going to operate like I got Drew Brees on my team. Like, and I just, no, I can't do Ryan Pace again. And I can't do Matt Eberflus anymore. Right. So I'm in a like really weird spot because I guess I would take Poles and Nagy. If I have to take out of this, I would just combine those two. I don't want that. I don't want Matt Nagy come back, but like that's what I would take out of that bunch. But I don't want that. I want the firing squad. Get me out of here. I don't want.
Can I go back to the hat? We had that hat earlier. Can I just stir up all the coordinators?
Yeah, this is a bad choice, Bill. I don't like
yeah, no, Bill put you in a bad spot on purpose, and credit to you, Bill. They are creative questions, and they do push us and make us think, and I appreciate that. But honestly, I've been thinking about this question a lot this week because everybody's been like, "Who do you want? Who do you want to be the head coach of the Bears next?" And
we got a lot of those questions, so we can talk about that.
A lot of those, but honestly, like if you give me a college grab bag, like if I get to go elevate college guys and just purely take a shot, like maybe he'll hook in because the college to pro success rate is it's mixed. Let's be honest, right? But there are some guys in college right now that, and I know this is going to be another dagger to your heart, and I hate that. I'm sorry about that. I apologize in advance. But what the offensive coordinators at Washington and Wazoo are doing right now is awesome. Like, not to mention Oregon, what they just did in their dismantling of Colorado, and Bo Nix looks like a real quarterback. Oregon State, DJ's there and it looks like he's having a resurgence. Like, I am so sad about the death of the Pac-12 right now because like there is so much going on that the combination of the offensive coordinator at Washington and Michael Penix is one of the most dynamic offenses in the country. Like, I don't care whether you like college football or not, go watch. It is deep. It is layered. It is awesome. And what Cam Ward and the offensive coordinator at Wazoo are doing right now, wildly understated. Nobody's talking about the Cougars. It is super duper duper fun. Oregon State is tough. Obviously, Caleb is at USC. UCLA is still playing well. I'm like, this is the greatest season of Pac-12 football in a long time, and it's just going to get blown up. But like, if I could grab either one of those guys from the Washington schools and say, you're my pass game coordinator, grab somebody else that's my run game coordinator, grab a decent offensive line coach. In fact, I would go to Brandon Thorne and say, hey, of all the Joe Moore candidates for all the Joe Moore Award line winners, like who's really good at taking guys that aren't 5 stars and turning them into like decent players? Get that guy, pair him, just like hodgepodge of staff. Basically do what Dable did in New York, right? Dable didn't go to his tree. Dable went against his tree. He grabbed outside influences and assembled a really cool offensive staff. Like that would be my choice right now. Ben Johnson, sure. Like everybody wants Ben Johnson. He's amazing. And if the Bears get him, lucky for them. I don't think they will because they always go for the second or third candidate. But give me a hodgepodge of like really creative CFB coordinators right now, and maybe you're ahead of the league for once.
Okay. Last one.
This is so tough.
This was the great question. So
it's great.
Bears are going to we're going to remake movies, and Bears players are going to be cast as the lead character. So we need to pick players that would play the following roles. And so when I thought about this, I had a lot of former Bears that I put in here too. I don't think we don't need to stick to current roster. Okay, that's too hard.
We can go former Bears. All right, that's a lid taking off.
It's too hard to just stick with the current roster, I think, because we don't know the personality of so many of these guys, and I think a lot of this is going to be a personality question. So
I think
John
that's
McClane,
a great choice.
Die Hard, right? So So that's one
Yippee-ki-yay.
need to fill. Han Solo, like so John McClane to me is like kind of the average guy that's like tough, you can't beat him down like that. That's the action hero that was sort of the every guy, wasn't, and he just kind of gets beat up throughout the whole movie, but like it gets, survives to the end, right? Han Solo, impossibly cool, right? Like that
swashbuckler.
Right. So that's kind of Han Solo. Ferris Bueller. So let's see, a famous movie that is not really that great, and then the actor went on to just be a terrible actor.
Come on, really? You don't love Ferris Bueller?
It's fine. I think it's overrated.
It's a Chicago movie.
And then terrible actor. So like, let's call it a one-hit wonder.
Okay.
I think that's the we have to fill it with someone who is like a one-hit wonder. I'm sorry, he's a terrible actor. I will die on that hill. I don't even think that's a hill. I think it's a little ridge that I just have to hang
I disagree, but okay.
Name me another movie you liked him in, because I'll go watch it again, because I think he's terrible.
Did you see his most recent role with?
He sucks in it. It's terrible. Okay, if they could have recast that, it might have been a good show. That was a tough show to get through.
I didn't get through the whole show, so I haven't gotten through the
whole
show
because of the acting wasn't that great. The dude from The Big Lebowski.
That's fascinating to me. I love that.
That's a great one. Tommy Boy. Obviously the Chris Farley character, Tommy Boy Callahan. What's Agent J? What does that mean?
I don't know. I missed that one. That was the only one I didn't get. Everybody else I'm down the line on.
Okay. We'll have to get some clarification from
chat. Help us out. Who's Agent J?
Chat, help us out on what Agent J is, but we'll start from the top. So, or pick what you got. Who are you filling in with Bears players, current roster, former players?
Well, former is really interesting, and for John McClane, it solided up for me. Like as soon as you said former players, I'm like, that's Jim McMahon.
Okay, get beat up all the time.
Getting beat up all the time, still comes out on top. Has a ton of
I like that.
A lot of personality. Like that to me, as soon as you said I could pick former players, I was like, there you go. That's McMahon.
Tom Waddle came to mind, right?
Sure.
Guy that was just looked like
every guy.
Your guy, like a normal guy, and then he just gets beat up, but he just keeps getting back up.
Okay, just a quick aside, rabbit hole. What's your favorite Die Hard line? Come on, there's so many.
Favorite Die Hard line? I have no idea.
No?
I don't know. What's yours?
Oh, come to the coast. It'll be fun. We'll have a great time. He's like crawling through the air duct with a lighter.
Yeah. Okay, that one's good. Yes. All right. Han Solo for me is Thomas Jones. He is the
I want to know.
Thomas Jones is the coolest guy that has played for the Bears. That
Okay, if we're going,
to me, Han Solo is the cool guy.
I'm realizing that the difference isn't Thomas Jones, it's Han Solo. Like, yes, Han sometimes is the
Oh,
coolest
see,
guy.
also, I'm not a Star Wars guy.
Oh,
So
okay.
you
That makes
please
way more
nerd
sense.
out and give us the nuance
All
of
right,
Han Solo.
absolutely. I am a Star Wars guy. For those of you that don't know, it was one of, if not the first, like adult movies that my dad ever took me to. Like, strangely enough, no pun intended, solo. Like, I was a first grader when Star Wars came out. And my dad was like to my mom, like, nope, I'm taking the kid on like a Tuesday night. We're gonna go see like a, you know, 7 p.m. showing. We're not gonna be home till 10. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. And then it's freaking Star Wars, which was, at the time it came out, completely underrated. But my dad was all in. He was like, nope, this is gonna be great. This is a, galactic space opera, and it's really good. Star Wars was a B movie when it came out, for those of you that don't know. Yes, it's gone on to be whatever, but Han Solo is like the guy that wants to be cool, but is kind of like not cool. He's pretending to be cool like the whole way. He wants to be cool. He wants to come off that way, but he's really just like fronting. It's like complete imposter syndrome. So for me, Han Solo is Rex Grossman.
Okay.
Like the guy that's like, screw it, I'm going deep. Like, don't tell me the odds. I'm just whipping it up there. But we'll see.
Well, and of course, we know that Thomas Jones is actually a real actor in real life. So
No, like Thomas Jones acting,
he could probably play any of these.
I loved him as a player. Let's be honest. I hope the Bears would draft him. He didn't end up getting drafted by the Bears. He ends up coming to the Bears in free agency and playing extremely well, and then going on to be a very serious actor. Loved him in, the Marvel roles he had and several other roles he's had since then. So shout out to, he goes by Thomas Q Jones. That's his accredited screen name. Fantastic guy on the field and off. Appreciated his football career, really appreciated his acting career. Nothing against him. In fact, I think he is a wildly talented dude.
Okay. So Ferris Bueller, since you love this movie,
I do, but we need a
so I should say we got a comment on the YouTube chat from Fitzy, and he's saying Justin Fields because he's missing in action. Didn't even show up to class. I like the angle, but I'm not sure I would say Justin Fields.
No,
I'm thinking maybe it's more somebody that just didn't show up, right? So there's maybe that.
I feel like we need for Ferris, we need someone whose legend is larger than his actual production. So I feel like we need a preseason hero.
Oh, it's like a Daniel Braverman.
Yes. Yes, that's perfect. Nailed it. We need someone who everybody got behind and said they're going to be amazing, but actually they were kind of a shyster and not really what they said they were.
Got it. Okay. Let's move on to the dude from The Big Lebowski. So one of my favorite movies. This was it's weird to say this movie was important to me, right? But in some ways, this movie was important to me, like because I watched a lot in college. I really liked it. I thought it was cool to drink White Russians. It really isn't. I mean, it's a fine drink, but like, it's not cool to drink them.
Come on, man. There's a beverage here.
College me thought it was cool to drink a White Russian, right? So who do you got for the dude?
The dude is, honestly, this is one of the tougher ones for me because the Bears typically have not had that sort of, how do I put this? That lifestyle guy. It was just like, it's all good. I'm fine. Things are wonderful. Everything will work out. I couldn't come up with a dude from the Bears. And now that you've opened it up to Bears history as well, I'm like, who's that guy that just kind of went with the flow? No matter what happened around him, was just like, all right, man, like easy, we'll work it out. I I don't know that I have one.
Yeah, I think I don't actually think I have an answer either. I was hoping that maybe it would come to me as we got into this, but I don't think I have an answer either. We'll have to think
I'll
about this
think
one.
on
Maybe we
it
can
and
talk about it. Okay.
I will bring you an answer next week, but
I think the
I
next one's
can't.
pretty easy. A Tommy Boy Callahan. So Tommy Boy, big guy. So it's got to be a lineman, right? Like, don't bring me
I
some skinny
agree.
guy, right? It's
I
got to
agree.
be a lineman, and then it's got to be a guy that's just like just super jovial and funny.
Mm,
To me, this is the fridge, right?
interesting. Okay, I'll give it to you. I'm completely aligned with must be a lineman. Like Tommy Boy, first thing I thought, like, gotta be a lineman. Chris Farley, like, yep, gotta be a lineman. And to me, it's just like over the top, super invested, like aggro, ready to go, good, bad, or indifferent, like, yeah, let's do it. And to me, that's probably Cruz.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's not how I get
I
get from
realize
Tommy
that
Boy. I think
Tommy
he's more
Boy,
goofy.
yeah, Tommy Boy in the movie Goofy, and I think Cruz was goofier on the field. Obviously, many things that have happened since don't, shine that light on him. But the Cruz story I remember that makes me sort of link the two is, um, and this is, completely non-PC. So if you're offended, trigger warning. Like Warren Sapp lined up across from him and called him a Mexican. And he just started laughing. He's like, I'm not Mexican, man. Like, I'm from Hawaii. Like, but it just made him giggle and like ready to snap the ball. And like, Warren Sapp gets down and throws an insult at him. And he's like, that's not even accurate, man. That's like the wrong insult. Again, jovial, big guy. Like, I get that, post playing career, Olin Kreutz might not make you think of Tommy Boy. Probably doesn't make you think of Tommy Boy, but it's the closest I got. The dude is still flummoxing me. I
Yeah, it's
need to
tough.
find a dude.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. So Agent J, according to the chat, which sorry that I didn't get this, is Will Smith's character in Men in Black.
Oh, now that I might throw Thomas Jones at that
Right. Now
straight
that
up.
I know that, that may have been a better
Yeah,
answer for Thomas Jones.
I would throw Thomas Jones at
Right.
that straight up, and
Right.
he
When I
would
read that, I
crush
was like,
it.
crap, I already used my answer.
Nah,
Right.
but it like super cool, like absolutely, I got it. Like no matter what, like yeah, that's Thomas Jones to me, like 100%.
Uh, our guy Fitzy has a suggestion. He's got Jared Allen
Oh
as
my
as
god,
as the as
I
the
I
dude.
don't think it's terrible, Fitzy. I don't hate it. It's closer than anything I had, so it's very difficult to throw stones at this point. I'll work on it for a week. I'll see if I can top that answer, but I might not be able to. We'll see. We'll see.
And we got another suggestion for Agent J as Peanut Tillman. Obviously, Peanut Tillman in the
Is
FBI.
now an
So,
actual
so
agent. Yes,
I get
100%.
that connection. I
Like
like that quite a bit.
I
That's pretty good.
I think that's really good actually.
Yep,
So, either one is
absolutely.
fine answer.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll end it there. I know that's ridiculous, but it was fun.
I don't know,
Thanks.
but it's kind of like the cheese draft, man. You never know where the good content's going to come from.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I still regret my choices in the cheese draft. So,
Well, that's
uh,
just because you lost.
well, right. Well, why else would I? If I would have won, I wouldn't have regretted my choices. I let you have
True.
queso, and it was over.
And that was it. And that was it. No, you smoked me in all those like set up this or that type evaluation drafts, all that. You always plan. You're a game theory guy and you always plan better than I do and usually like pip all my choices. So the fact that I got the cheese draft over on you the one time, I'll take it.
You'll celebrate it forever. So, all right,
Sure.
we're gonna get out of here. Appreciate you guys sticking with us on the YouTube and sticking with us on the podcast. You know, the Bears might be bad, but we're putting out good content. So, well, or maybe we're not. Maybe this content isn't your thing, but if you stuck there around this long, it probably is. So,
Yeah.
appreciate you, and we'll see you next time, guys.